It's 4 o'clock. I'll call the community safety meeting to order for Tuesday, September 10th. The next committee meeting date is October 8th at 4 p.m. here in the Anderson Room. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? No? Motion on the minutes? Second? All in favor? Thank you. Community Safety Division Business License Activity Report, second quarter. Mr. Corrado.
To the chair, I have nothing to add, and I'm open to questions.
Councillor Heed. Oh, wait, sorry, you haven't pressed your button yet.
I'm going to follow my story. I'm sorry. I didn't even have an opportunity to read my agenda.
Oh, sorry.
So I probably do have questions, but not right now.
Okay, well, you're looking pale, but not that transparent at the beginning of the meeting, but okay. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Hobbs. Sorry, it's going fast here somehow.
It's okay, thanks, and through the chair, I have no confessions to make, but I will just ask about table 2 in the business license data. Pretty significant increase, and just wondering if you can explain what that reflects. You know, is it greater enforcement? Probably.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, it does reflect an emphasis on enforcement, particularly for businesses that do not have a license. So we have hired an additional temporary full-time resource who's been encouraging businesses to come into compliance. So we've also had a positive side where we've had an increase in new license applications as a result.
And that's good, because particularly between 2022 and this year, the increase is quite significant, so that's good work. Thanks.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff. First question, just to clarify, I had a bunch of other questions, but they might be solved. Could you compare the inactive licenses to expired licenses?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, an inactive license is where staff can confirm that the business is no longer operating in the city as a result of either going out of business or changing to a different location. An expired license could be a license which is gone beyond the normal time where an invoice should have been paid. Staff will follow up and determine if the business is operating or not operating, but it could be an outstanding unpaid license.
Okay, then my follow-up question, I think that remains, is in our table 3, the number and status of business licenses for 23-24. I see the trend for valid licenses has been going up. The trend for pending change applications has been going down. But under expired licenses, it was going up and then it went down quite significantly and then is going up again. And I do note that on page 12, at the end of that first paragraph, you're saying they're going to be addressing a number of the expired licenses that require follow-up. So like in your early indications, though, why do you think this fluctuation occurred?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, there is some fluctuations relative seasonality, but one of the benefits of one of the many benefits of my business system is we've getting greater accuracy on data, so we're able to report clearly where those expireds are, and we are sharpening our pencils as to those that haven't paid their invoice on time, and then we are sending that out for an enforcement team to follow up.
Okay, I think that just final quick follow-up, if I may. Is there an indication of the business type that most of those almost 500 expired licenses come from? Is there a trend or?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I can get back to you with that information, what the breakdown may be on that.
That's fine. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, we have a motion. All in favor? Thank you. Oh, sorry. Councillor Day, you had something.
We're still on number 1, right?
Yes, well, we voted on, but you can ask.
Okay, yes.
Sorry about that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I was reading this story in CTV about 5 drivers fined $11,500 for illegal ride hailing. And then I noticed that in the report that in June, July we picked up $11,000, and in June, $18,000 in fines. Because of this enforcement, has there been an increase of people getting business licenses for ride hailing?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I should note that that operation was carried out by members of the Commercial Vehicle Safety Enforcement Team with the RCMP. Business license didn't participate in that, but that was a very effective operation. We have seen not a great increase in terms of the number of licensed ride-hailing companies. They are licensed through the Passenger Transportation Board. However, we have seen a significant increase in the contribution, the revenue for all the participating intermunicipal business licenses cities. So we've seen an uptick in that activity.
Okay, interesting, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and we've already voted on it, so thank you. Next item, number 2, Community Bylaws Monthly Activity Report.
To the chair, I have nothing further to add, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Councillor Heed?
Yes, I think this is probably the most appropriate time to ask this particular question, rather than waiting for the manager's report on this, because it is somewhat related to bylaws and somewhat related to finance. You may recall that a few months ago, I asked a question with respect to cash-only businesses here in Richmond, and the fact that I'm not opposed to cash if you want to pay cash, but the opportunity for someone to pay by debit or some other credit card. And the fact that, do we have any bylaws in existence that prohibit or forbid cash, specific cash only from these, whether it's a restaurant or another type of business?
Through the chair to Councillor Heat, this time we do not have any bylaws that dictate what form of payment is acceptable at a business.
Do we have a charter argument with respect to that, or can we look at something? And you know, I don't want to make a referral, which at a later date I can make it, if in fact we don't have any leg to stand on if we were going to look at that.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, if I understand the question, are you asking whether we can prohibit cash-only businesses or prohibit the use of cash?
No, not the use of cash, cash-only businesses.
We would have to look into that. I don't see anything necessarily that, well, it would be, I am certain that if that were imposed, that you had to be open to accepting payment in something other than cash or in addition to cash. There would be challenges, but there could be arguments, I suppose, to make that if it is discriminatory, it is saved by Section 1 of the Charter. You have to make some argument that it's that limitation on the right would be demonstrably justified. So we'd have to advance some sort of argument to say that to the extent there is some sort of infringement of a right, that infringement is permissible.
And I guess from my point of view is, I'm certain we could get some data from CRA with respect to whether taxes are being paid on that. We just have to do our due diligence, I think, in that. Don't be surprised if a official referral comes up, but I would kind of give you an opportunity to look at some initial information with respect to this. Thank you.
Councillor Galanders.
Thank you. Through the chair, I don't think our next one.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. Stop touching it.
I never touched it. Thank you. Through the chair, just comment on what you're saying. I think that it's funny because some businesses in the city are no cash. They only accept card, and some people say that's discriminatory because, you know, somebody only has a bit of change in their pocket, they can't get a coffee. So it's kind of the other way around. I would be concerned about making that you had to give the option of credit or debit for like a really small business, like a little farm stand, where they don't, you know, want to have to pay the fees for the square. But at the same time, it could be interesting to have a process, or at least encourage a process where you see people are paying their taxes on cash transactions, because quite often they're like, oh, if you pay cash, you don't have to pay the tax. It's like, why is that? You're not reporting that income. Oh, that's not good, but I just don't know how much the city has to do with that. But on this report, a great number of increases in soil unauthorized fill on farmland, page CS 16. So it looks like there was 12 new ones. Stop work and removal orders issued. I'm just curious, are these in response just to public complaints, or are bylaws, people going out there and finding these sites on their own as well?
Through the chair to Councillor Glanders, we do see an increase in the warm weather months, so this is not out of the line of historical issues popping up. And this is a blend of call response as well as proactive patrolling. Our soil inspectors are out there in the community quite a bit, and often they do follow-ups on previous files, and whilst you're doing a follow-up on another file, you may see some activity going on in a neighboring property.
And surely, I mean, a lot of these are all in a similar neighborhood. It's almost like, you know, hey, these guys are neighbors almost on some of them. You know, where did you get yours? Yeah, we made all this money with this tipping fees. Call this guy. I mean, are you guys tracking down anybody that's going around and asking farms if they can dump here? Have you made any progress with figuring out who's perpetuating this?
Through the chair to Councillor Glanders, staff have a good relationship with all of the qualified professionals that will bring issues to our attention if they're seeing any trends. Also, we have a good relationship with a lot of the farming community that they'll let us know if they are seeing some trends. We're not aware of any single person who's sort of facilitating an increase in activity, but we are attuned to that and we are on the lookout for that.
Are all of these stop work removal orders, do they have a certain amount of time before coming into compliance before they get fined at all, or do they also get a small fine right away?
Through the chair to Councillor Glanders, it depends on each case, but you'll note that there is a number of 15 violations were issued, tickets in July.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf?
Thank you, through the chair. Just, I was going to ask about the soil activity, but I'll leave that one alone. On the unsightly premises, so there was 315 of those calls for service in July year to date. July year to date, the green bar there, it's quite high. I saw a few people recently who showed me their ticket or notification for having an unsightly premises, and they were quite taken aback by it, where their properties have wildlife habitat, they abide by the Metro Vancouver watering, they allowed some of the lawns to grow higher to provide habitat, and yet all their neighbors have concrete slabs over everything. And when they get these notices, it doesn't say who complained, so they don't have the opportunity to go speak to the person to say, you know, this isn't me neglecting it, this is me trying to enhance it in a way that you might not understand. What part does the city staff have in helping to educate those who are making these complaints?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, definitely our preferred option is to resolve complaints voluntarily. Education is a wonderful tool in our toolkit to resolve a lot of issues. We tend to not disclose the nature of the complainant because that could put the complainant at risk, and that would likely lead to a chilling effect. And the people that are subject to a complaint have an appeal period where they can go in front of an adjudicator, and we inform them it's on the ticket as well. If people don't come forward during that adjudication period, it's an acceptance of guilt of the violation.
Yeah, so I'm not on committee, but that's, I think, where there's a piece missing, where it needs to be more of a citywide approach to encourage people to do this and embrace that, maybe even provide incentives to do it. Because if people are unable to address the person making the complaint, and they get this again the next year and the year after, many people have expressed that it's a form of being bullied out of your neighborhood for doing the right thing. So I think there's something missing there. The other part to the same item, the calls for service for unsightly premises, how many, or is this also where, like, blackberry growing over fences into public walkways, does it also fit into here? And when those get, when people don't respond to it and admit the guilt of it being their blackberries and the roots coming from their property line, is it like 100% of the time that the city then removes it and charges those properties on when they pay taxes for the work that the city crews had to do?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I would say it's a very, very small percentage of the time where we have to resort to that. A majority of the time we get voluntary compliance. I will note that in the paragraph on CS15, it gives a breakdown of 74 of those calls were sidewalk obstructions related to overgrowth and due to trees and hedges. The bulk were due to lawn grass. And to your point about what can be done proactively, there is a definite correlation here to seasonal growth. So part of our strategy is to try to get ahead of some of these issues as the season comes about. For example, snow removal, it's a good time to get that out in December where we think there's going to be a forecast. So staff can work with corporate communications to get that message out early as a reminder to people that this is the growing season. It's good to be on top of that grass. Certainly when there are concerns, staff will meet with people and that are subject to complaint and take into account a prior history. That's a major indicator of if we've had that conversation before in previous years or there's violations, then there's less tolerance of further violations and there's a ticket issuance usually ensues.
Thank you. And just a few more comments, Chair. So this committee members will probably get asked about expanding our budget, city budget for blackberry enhanced removal around the city. And I think when it comes to hedges, yes, hedges do grow outward, but a lot of the fast growing problems with hedges is the blackberry that come out of them. And all people can do is clip them off and then they just keep growing back year after year, season after season, where it's really hard to address those roots. And that's really what needs to be tackled, I believe, in many of these cases that I've come across. Sorry, but my last question through the chair to staff is on our page 19. This is the parking revenue by source. And I know there's some illegal parking, heavy-duty truck parking occurring, specifically around like 6th Road and Westminster Highway. And I believe there was one property owner that received a very high fine, about the $100,000 range. And I believe that would have fallen under parking revenue. I don't think this it isn't captured here in July because the fine happened earlier in the year. But is that where it would show up if we were to fine property owners for continually not abiding by the parking and ALR usage? And if you can comment any more on that specific case where the trucks keep rolling in and out of that driveway every day.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I believe you're referring to the $100,000 ruling that would have been reflected in either other bylaw fines. Parking revenue is for violations under the traffic bylaw principally and off-street bylaw. So it wouldn't have been reflected there.
And then could you, through the chair, could you follow up? Has there been a second large fine issued, or are we seeing compliance?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, perhaps we can, we have been issuing violation tickets and staff are actively working with external legal counsel to contemplate our next move on that particular file.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Day?
Thank you very much. So with the 860 calls for in June and July, a 36% increase for illegal soil deposits, do you think we can attribute some of that public engagement to the signs that we put up, report dumping?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, certainly the signs are a really good indicator, especially if they're proximate to when an event like that is going on. So it may be strongly correlated to an increase.
Yeah, I think it probably does, and I'm just wondering if we shouldn't put up more signs to make more of the public aware that when you see something that you're concerned about, give us a call, because we can't be everywhere. But I wanted to ask, previously I asked about containers that are left for like literally years in driveways and front yards. How are we doing on that file? If you don't have the information right now, you can always just send a memo.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, we've gone through a number of those particular referrals, but I can get back to you via memo or email if ever.
Thank you.
Councillor Galanders?
Thank you. Through the chair, I just had another question I remembered. It's about signs. I apologize, I should know this, but what exactly is the sign bylaw when it comes to the sandwich boards on the sidewalk?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, the sandwich board signs are not permitted in almost every instance except when a business first opens. There's a short period of time when it is permitted for a new business.
Okay. Are there sandwich board signs in areas that are being used all the time that are not being enforced? Because people are using them. And then a business owner who didn't know they couldn't have a sandwich board just got, someone complained, and so they got a fine, and they see sandwich boards every day, all day in another neighborhood. So I think it's confusing, and I don't think they should be prohibited. And I think that we should look at changing it. I know that it's not that old of a bylaw, but if we're not going to be enforcing all of them all the time, then I think we need to change it. So I might write something up about that for another meeting. As long as it's not blocking wheelchairs or strollers. And I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, I think you just referred to some of the reasons why there is a regulation there regarding the perhaps the sidewalk being obstructed. There are certain communities that do allow it through a permitting system, but an unregulated allowance for sandwich board signs could lead to conflict in terms of potential obstructions to strollers, persons with in wheelchair and accessibility issues as well, but that can be examined by staff.
Okay, sorry, just one follow-up on that. So you're saying that some communities do have them through permitting?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, I believe that's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Some
No,
cities.
oh,
yeah.
not Richmond.
Areas in Richmond.
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, I apologize for that. Municipalities allow
Okay.
it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. The Richmond Center for Disability did a lot of work on this in the past, actually requesting, because they've had issues with ability to move wheelchairs.
Sure.
And crutches and whatever else. And so that's why it was created in the first place.
They're everywhere still. But they're all moved away from, they're like clusters of them completely away from the sidewalk, but they're all there, not even for new businesses. But then other businesses are getting fined and then seeing that they're still all. So it's not consistent. Okay, thanks.
We have a recommendation. All in favor? Thank you. Richmond Fire Rescue Monthly Activity Report. Chief?
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair. I have one minor edit on our report on page CS 24.
1,080.
That's the right one. Thank you for catching that. We had just a minor edit on the sum on the table 1, incident totals, June 2023. There's a 0 missing there. I'm happy to answer any questions of you or your committee.
Counselor Day?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. On page 22, we talk about orientation presented to city library staff in preparation for the hot summer season and possible activations for extreme heat. Did we have any of those?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, we didn't have any actual activations for an extreme heat warning, although there was a number of times this summer that we engaged Public Works, the libraries, the community centers to open up their doors for perhaps an extended time, informing people through the website, through social media, through public messaging about the coming heat, which, like I say, wasn't extreme, but certainly was going to be warmer than expected.
Do we put up signs just to let people know, you know, come on in, it's cooler in here, because people might be walking by and not realize that they can?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I believe they do. The individual access to those facilities typically is managed by those facility managers, whether it's the public libraries or the community centers in the state during a heat activation. Definitely those signs would be up and messaging correlated to the event.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Hobbs?
Thank you, and through the chair. Thanks for the report, Chief. One quick comment and a question. I watched Richmond 1, the hockey team, play in the Play Like Ray tournament on the weekend, so they had a very awesome team and they won the championship, so congratulations. Cowboys played well too. The question I have is just regarding the training section, and that's on page 23, and it's about vehicle extraction training. And I just wondered, you know, we're on an island, so how do you practice for water extractions and that kind of thing where cars end up in the river or one of our large ditches, for instance?
Certainly, certainly. Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, thank you for that. We do a number of different training activities, and so in the event that a car ends up in the river or in a large deep ditch that's full of water, we would combine not only our auto extrication capacity but also our surface water rescue capacity. All of our crews are trained to do surface water rescue. All of our apparatus have dry suits, helmets, inflatable life vests, and water rescue equipment. And so whatever units are responding to those calls, the certain number of staff would dress up in that equipment, get into the river in a safe manner, assist with the extrication of the patient. We do typically perform 3 or 4 of those types of rescues annually, more notably in some of the deeper ditches in the eastern part of the island or the middle part of the island.
Yeah, thank you. Even farm vehicles and tractors can end up in those big ditches, so tricky work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Wolf?
Thank you, through the chair. Chief, just a few questions here. First one, first two are on page 23. You hosted the basic incident command systems 2-day training. And then at the end of that, it says that it would be to establish and work within a command structure. Does that structure, is that like referring to the command center vehicle that is coming at the end of next year, or something different?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, that command structure is basically a strategy that's provincial, national. There's command structure training that goes on. Our emergency program staff teach other members of the city business units on how to operate that command structure. When the command vehicle arrives, that structure would certainly be implemented within that vehicle for all those right uses.
Okay, great, thank you. My next one relates to something that's not in the report, but it kind of relates to public outreach and education. I've talked to some other firefighters in other municipalities that offer a youth academy, kind of parallel to what the RCMP offers. And I've heard that it's not like extra staff, it's more like an extracurricular for their existing staff on like the downtime to organize it and plan it. And then if there's enough staff, they open it up to like high school students in a similar way that our RCMP does. Is there anything that maybe used to exist or is in the works to come to Richmond?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, Richmond Fire Rescue does sponsor a number of high school age women annually to attend a week-long camp during the summer. Now that camp isn't specifically located right in Richmond, but oftentimes Richmond hosts certain events during that week-long camp. And in the future, in our strategic plan, it is my intention to hold youth academy in the city, particularly oriented towards age groups from that age. So
What was the name of the existing group?
I believe the existing group for the young women is called Camp Ignite.
Camp Ignite, okay, thank
And
you.
oftentimes will participate in the interview and the sponsorship of young women, as well as some of our staff volunteer for the weekend performance instructors and that.
Okay, terrific, thank you. My last two quick questions related to the significant events. So the first one on page 25, that was the big structure fire, the wooden elevated trestle fire, and yeah, I've read the memo that we got on it and such. I'm curious, do we know if any groups or has the Richmond Fire Rescue participated in looking at the longer-term effects of that, like the toxicity of that creosote-soaked wood that burned and has now spread around the estuary? Is there any groups that have done monitoring or excavation of some of that material?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, just shortly after that fire was extinguished, we issued orders to the owner of the trestle to perform an environmental assessment on the residual trestle, the wood, the area. And that environmental assessment came back. It was issued back to not only us, but also the owner of the trestle. And it indicated that there was very little and minimal issues with the environment as a result of the trestle.
Okay, follow up on that. Is there any, like, would it come from the city to order the remaining trestle to be taken down? Or is that outside of our jurisdiction?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we don't have jurisdiction to order the removal of that trestle. It is not a public hazard in anything that will fall under the authority that I would have under the bylaw. So we would not be ordering that.
Okay, thank you. And through the chair, my final question is on page 26. It's the technical rescue on Gilly Road, and that was where a decomposed body was located in the ditch. And it was found on the side of the Gilly Road where there's no walkway. It's like the road right up to the ditch. And a number of residents are still kind of curious, like, how did the body get there? Was it a pedestrian or someone who was hit by a vehicle and propelled into the ditch and then found decomposed later? Because if that were the case, then I think a lot of people need to be informed, because the majority of people who walk that road walk on that side. And they continue to do it even if this body was a pedestrian. Are we able to release that to the public? Because I believe we were able to identify who it was fairly soon, but it hasn't been released if they were walking or cycling. Yeah.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, it wouldn't be within my purview. I wouldn't know that information, and so I wouldn't have the authority to release it either way. But my understanding was the fire rescue crews were called simply to assist the coroner in retrieving that body for the coroner's use. Yeah.
Councillor Heed?
Yes, a quick question, and then I have two more in-depth questions. The trestle fire, now, you've indicated there's no way from your investigation that we can determine what happened. That's very rare, as you can imagine in your years in the fire service. What were some of the complexities to lead you to believe there's no way of determining the cause of that fire?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, certainly it is unfortunate that we weren't able to determine a cause or find the origin. The main barrier to my investigators being able to do that work is the site underneath the area that we have to access is unsafe for our people to be operating on. And so until either that area is made safe or it's completely removed and we move in there in boats, it would be inappropriate for me to assign staff into that area to conduct the cause and origin investigation. So we've made the determination that it's undetermined.
Is the file then closed, or will you be open, for example, if the area is made safe, they're demolishing that particular area in order for you to gather some type of lead?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, we have reported our findings to the Office of the Fire Commissioner, which is our regulatory mandate. The Office of the Fire Commissioner has accepted that and closed the file from their perspective. Should any other evidence arise, we could certainly review it. I would suspect at this point in time, though, with the weather, the temperatures, the traffic in the area, any evidence that we could find might be contaminated to a point where it would be difficult to determine exactly what the cause was.
Okay, thank you. Now, you and I had a conversation earlier this summer with respect to equipment, and we just, the work-related death of the captain in Vancouver. They had his service last week. And, I think it's paramount in listening to Chief Fry from Vancouver talk about ensuring that uniforms are the appropriate uniforms and the equipment's the appropriate equipment, and I know they're taking the lead on that. Are we moving forward in that to protect our firefighters? Where are we on that particular file related to their equipment and uniforms?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, Richmond Fire Rescue does take the care and health and wellness of our staff very, very seriously. The PPE, the personal protective equipment that we arm our staff with to do the jobs that we ask them to do is the best quality that we can find on the market. As well, we have gone down the road of procuring a different set of PPE that they can deploy, which is what is commonly known in the market called rescue gear. And it's going to be worn by our staff when they respond to events such as motor vehicle incidents, alarms, ringing calls, technical rescue calls, in areas where they are not involved in structural firefighting, interior structural firefighting. That gear is going to be worn by them possibly up to 70% of their responses, thereby reducing the amount of time they wear the structural firefighting PPE. As well, we are looking forward to the next series of procurement for firefighting PPE, and we're investigating a trial to find gear that may not have that same type of chemical that Vancouver is procuring as well. And on top of that, we're actually investigating as well, and we're just starting a trial next week, which is going to be a 6-month trial here in the city, where we're reviewing all of our emergency calls for service, where our staff have to wear protective equipment and ensembles, and determining if we're sending the proper number of vehicles and the right number of vehicles to the right types of calls, with the aim of reducing the number of staff that go to certain calls that are not as high acuity, thereby reducing the risk to staff and to the public during the response, as well as the need for staff to be at events where it's unnecessary for their attendance to be.
As far as PPE go, are we still looking at having some hybrid system, or are we looking at 2 sets per member?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, currently every member has 2 sets. With the arrival of the new rescue gear, every member will have 3 sets, not including water rescue gear and technical rescue suits. And we don't suspect that's going to have to change going into the future. We've got a strong management system that can allow that gear to stay.
And I think just for this committee and council at large, equipment is so important for our firefighters, and I think we've got to really look at protecting them. And I know the RCMP is a little bit different on it, but we've got a responsibility for our firefighters. And the last thing I just want to leave with you, Chief, and I got thinking of the fact that we are an island, we're surrounded by water. If we were to have some unfortunate disaster where we're cut off, completely cut off, from the bridges are gone, the tunnel's gone, what's our ability to do urban search and rescue within our fire service or in any of our other protective services?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, we do have a limited ability to perform urban search and rescue. That would include some very technical aspects of it, which our staff, a number of our staff are trained for. We have certain teams in-house that are trained for some of that. Operating for a long term over that period would be difficult. We do have food and water stored at all of our fire halls for all of our staff to operate for days on end before any resupply is necessary.
Would there be a great expense if we were to, you're familiar, I know you're familiar with how we set the one up in Vancouver, the Hussar in Vancouver. And it was a combination of fire services, the police, and the engineering department. Do we have any ability to bring that type of course, at a different level? We don't want to be where we're at the national level because we'll never get deployed. Is there an ability to bring that type of training and resources, equipment within our fire service?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, it absolutely is a potential. I believe with the relationships and the working operational relationships we have in-house with our friends with the RCMP, plus with the BC Ambulance Service and Public Works, we could gather those resources relatively quickly should an incident happen even today. Moving forward, it isn't out of our realm to look at putting a strategy forward, but I would need some support for that.
And certainly, I won't speak for the rest of the committee or council. I would really look forward to you coming forward and or your assistant chief coming forward with something, because we've got to be prepared and working again with the police resources we have here in the engineering department, public service work. So I would be looking forward to seeing something like that. I'll let the rest of council comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Certainly some good questions. Thank you. Any further questions, comments? We have a motion. Second. All in favor? Thank you. Fire Chief briefing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 items just to share with you and your committee referencing the Richmond Fire Rescue Community Outreach and Education Program. Between now and the next time we gather, National Fire Prevention Week will have occurred, which is October 6th to October 12th. That happens across the country. And our outreach squad has a full week designed and ready to release during that week for fire prevention. And if you don't follow us on Instagram or Facebook, I would suggest that you do. There'll be some really good videos and a lot of good information coming out, as well as information in the schools and in a lot of the community groups. This year's focus for Fire Prevention Week is smoke alarms in the home and at work. And so that's going to be the main topic for that week. And the other piece I want to bring up is we've had brief discussions in the past about some issues relating to lithium-ion batteries, storage and charging. And so Richmond Fire Rescue has a strategy prepared to release with a public education and outreach campaign. We've decided through some investigation that the best time to release that campaign would be early December, leading into mid-December, just before everybody starts doing a lot of Christmas shopping, in which case that would resonate, we believe, with a lot of the consumers on the proper purchasing of appropriate batteries and storage and charging them. And so that'll be released in December as well. And I'll have more information for that as time comes along.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
RCMP monthly activity report. Chief Superintendent Chauhan.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I don't have anything to add to the report. Happy to take any questions or receive your comments.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question is about fraud. It's the only one that was red flagged for both months. And I do note in the report on CS40, the paragraph there on fraud, it does highlight that the one big case was the victim defrauded over $1.5 million. But do you have any insight on the rest? Because that's just one of the cases of the 2 months of red flagged fraudulent behavior going on.
Through the chair to Councillor Worf, we have seen an increase in fraud-related files. Whether it's romance scams or identity fraud or other type of business frauds that happen, and sometimes even frauds that are generated through social media platforms. And we see that. And this is one of those where obviously, it's a high value fraud. And we have seen some of these files where people are conned into, giving money, whether the perpetrators are pretending to be a Chinese police or whatnot, creating that sense of fear in that individual who end up transferring large sums of money. And this is just one of those unfortunate incidents. This file is still ongoing, and on top of that, our media unit, our fraud unit, we continue to send public advisories, notifications through social media and through our media releases, warning our public to be cautious. If something does not seem right, don't act on that, right? You can always contact your police or phone a friend or consult with someone to determine the legitimacy of the calls or whatnot that you're receiving. No one from Hong Kong police or Chinese police is going to call someone and say that there's a warrant for their arrest. There's procedures for those type of things, and that is done at the local police level. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And we don't get out of it with Apple gift cards.
That's right.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Hobbs.
Thanks, and through the chair. Thanks, Chief, for the report. Just a couple questions. E-scooter participation in the training program, was that, because the e-scooter issue is getting trickier to navigate on our roads, and what was the participation level like that? And I imagine that'll be ongoing.
To the chair, to Councillor Hobbs, this was a well-attended event. There was, quite a bit of community participation. I believe it was done at Lansdowne Mall. We had, I think, probably close to 100 individuals who participated in the event, and we'll host more of these down the road.
Yeah, that'll be ongoing, I'm sure. Just a couple other quick questions through the chair. The robbery on the 10,000 block number 3 road was a little bit interesting to read in a snapshot of 8 masked people and 1 victim. So I'm not sure if there's anything that you want to comment on publicly about that incident, but if there is, if you could elaborate, that'd be good. And if not, it's understandable.
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Hobbs. This was an isolated incident which occurred on June 1st, close to 11 at night, after the individual had finished their work. They were leaving their workplace and they were confronted by 8 individuals. And in the process, some personal items were stolen. The individual was assaulted. They were taken to RGH, but the injuries were not serious enough, and they were released shortly after being assessed. And so the file is still being worked on. Our investigators are pursuing CCTV, forensic leads, so it's still being worked on.
Okay, good to know. Just a couple other quick ones. With the sex offenses, can you elaborate on anything that might have been like a stranger incident?
Yes, with respect to sex offenses, for this reporting period, we had one incident, which was on June 16th. And in this incident, we had an individual was walking, and they were being followed by another person who made some sexual comments, and there was no further escalation of that incident, and it just ended there.
Okay, good. And last question through the chair is just regarding shoplifting. Year-to-date increase, I think, was significant, 39%. So if you could comment on that, and also just arrests and what operations have happened to hopefully curtail it and improve that situation.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, we have seen an increase in retail theft going back to the beginning of this year. And we have taken many measures to combat the escalation in retail theft through engaging with our businesses and through enforcement efforts. We have conducted several boost and bust operations. This report, I know that the numbers for retail theft for us had peaked 3-4 months ago, where we were seeing close to 190 to 200 thefts that were happening each month. But through sustained efforts, through our enforcement efforts, boost and bust operations by property crime unit, by our frontline officers, by our bike patrols, business outreach engagement through our volunteers, community engagement teams. And the last 4 boost and bust operations that we have conducted, over 50 individuals were arrested, and probably close to $25,000 to $30,000 worth of merchandise was recovered. One of the individuals who was arrested was a prolific shoplifter, and they had targeted one single business where they were suspected of having stolen $100,000 from that business. And then just recently, we've arrested and we charged these individuals. And just recently, one individual who was targeting another retail business here, Crown Council has approved 8 counts of theft under charges on those. So we are seeing some success in that regard as well. But when I look at the numbers on these reports, compared to 4 months ago, where we were close to 190 offenses per month, and in July it's down to 95. So that's quite a significant reduction. And I know for the year we are up 39%. And as per my calculations, for so far this year, we have experienced about 40 extra incidents of shoplifting per month. So, you know, about more than one more incident per day. But we will stay on top of it, and we'll continue both our proactive and reactive measures to address retail theft in the city.
Sure, that sounds good. And just a quick comment on that. I mean, it's a epidemic across Metro Vancouver, so it's not just Richmond. So the important thing is, you know, you're doing operations, making arrests, that kind of thing. And at some point in the future, not fair to ask you this now, but kind of a heads up, I'd be interested to know a few more of the results when it comes to dealing with Crown, because that's a very topical issue on a number of fronts. And despite all the good work of the police, sometimes it doesn't go the way you'd want it to with charge approval or court. But another topic.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Oh, I guess I gotta wait. Oh, it is sprinkler. Okay, sorry. Thank you very much for the report. CS 41's got a little section on drugs, and it says that in June there were 19 drug offenses, which is a 54% decrease from the previous month. And in July there were 22 drug offenses, which is a 16% increase from the previous month, but down 55% from 2023. So those are great news items. And how does Richmond compare to other communities on this front?
To the chair, to Councillor Day, the difference between Richmond and other communities, we also have airport that we deal with. So we certainly target drug-related investigations here in the city, but we also have our share of drug-related offenses that we deal with at the airport level. But through combined efforts and working with our partners, and we are seeing these decreases, which is you know, a welcome news for us.
Good, thank you. And then just further down on the page, mental health. There were 263 mental health calls in June and 220 mental health related incidents in July. Are these folks generally violent or not?
To the chair, to Councillor Day, most of the incidents, investigations dealing with individuals suffering from mental health, they are generally, we don't experience any serious concerns. Folks are, we have a, due to our Fox 80 approach with the police officer and nurse working together, there is that relationship with these clients. And so there's that trust factor. And when our officers and the nurses approach these individuals, there's higher compliance and less, obviously, little violence. But these situations can be unpredictable. But we have not experienced any serious incidents from these.
Yeah, I bring it up because, you know, perception is everything. And right now, council's being inundated with letters, stop the Sexsmith and Canby supportive housing project, which of course the province has done. But they're still rolling in, all these letters. We've got 3 speakers coming in next week. What can we do to try to educate people that just because someone needs a little help doesn't mean they're going to come and murder you? Because people seem hyper concerned.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Day, I mean, that is, it's a difficult question, but I think, you know, there always has to be that level of understanding because we often don't know who we are dealing with. And sometimes with their behaviors or actions, some assumptions can be formed. But, you know, with us, with police training, you know, we are trained to watch some indicators, some behaviors, how to interact with individuals because someone who exteriorly may appear normal, inside may be suffering from, you know, some sort of condition. So I think it is, you know, being aware, being conscious of those factors and, you know, dealing with that individual accordingly.
Yeah, they kind of reduce the tension level and just talk to the person to person. And I have to say, when I read on CS40 about the imposter Chinese police officer that defrauded a victim of $1.5 million, like, do they come dressed as officers? Like, how could they fool them? Like, it just seems unbelievable.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Day, most of these contacts are not done in person. They could be done through phone call, social media, email, you know, could be a video message. There's many different ways that people try to con you.
Wow, we don't do things that way. You don't come to my house and want $1.5 million. That's not how it works. Yeah. So I guess we need to educate those that have been tricked into understanding that's just not the way things are done in Canada.
Yes, again, through the chair to Councillor Day, like I said earlier, if there's any inkling or indication that this is not right, you know, don't comply with their demands. And like I said, reach out to someone, call the police, call a relative. Just don't act on an impulse or on a fear, and you know, lose $1.5 million off your savings.
I mean, you can make a movie out of this one. Thank you.
Well,
Councillor Heed.
I'll just carry on from that particular point. Chief, based on your expertise, what's the percentage of unreported on these types of frauds?
to the chair, to Councillor Heath, I don't have an estimate, but I would not be surprised because we are not only seeing these type of frauds, but you know, we are also experiencing frauds that are extortion type frauds that are being targeted at businesses or houses or individuals, and we have seen incidents, you know, in other cities. I would imagine that there are individuals who are reluctant to come forward for one reason or the other, but I don't have an estimate as to what that number is. But then again, whoever the victims are, I always encourage them, to speak to a friend, to reach out to the police, and at least get that ball rolling. Because, if the file is reported to us, the police can at least, conduct an investigation or counsel the person as to, what they can do to prevent certain further reoccurrences of the fraud happening.
Thank you. I would guess a significant portion go unreported, unfortunately. Just a comment about Councillor Day's drug case issue. I'm wondering, Chief, in order so we don't get the confusion of police-generated cases as a result of YVR, if there's any way we can get some type of, and I think Ed would be listening, statistical data on the number of calls from, at the end of the day, it may be cleared some other way, calls that we get from the public here in Richmond related to some type of drug use here in the city. That kind of social disorder problem, I'm just throwing that out there. I think that would probably define it a little more.
Through the chair to Councillor Heath, I can have that discussion with Ed and see if there's something that we can come up with.
Okay. My last point, Councillor Hobbs raised this charge approval issue, and I think he's wearing his old hat. He's got to take that hat off, because that's your issue on the charge approval and the prosecution. We as a local government have very little we can do on the influencing of the administration of justice here in the province of British Columbia. So that's certainly something that you can certainly advocate for based on your statistics. I have commented that whether you're laying the charge or it goes through a charge or approval process, at the end of the day, Crown determines whether they're going to prosecute or not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Galanders.
Thank you through the chair. Yeah, thank you for the report. Thanks for, everything, keeping our city the safe, wonderful city that it is. Just looking at all the statistics, a lot of things went in the right direction in July. A decrease of 7 incidences for arson, a decrease in assaults, a decrease in auto theft, decreases in robbery. And you're apprehending individuals and getting people arrested. On CS39, the assault, there was one stranger assault and the suspect was arrested. Just sort of commenting on what Councillor Day brought up, the misconceptions about what, it seems to me that all of the, serious crimes that we have, like the drive-by shootings or road rages, these are people with vehicles. These are not, people that are without homes. The majority of our serious crimes are people with vehicles or whatnot. 65% of assaults are domestic in nature, for example. So it's good that we publish all these statistics, but also commenting on the mental health file. The mental health incidences, that's 220 mental health incidences in July. It's a significant number, but it is down from last year. But what's increased is the hospital wait times, right? So that seems like it's just getting really untenable. I mean, 124 minutes, and that's, it's a lot of time that the officers have to spend in the hospital. And I'm also just really concerned about one caller generating 19 incidences all on their own. I mean, this person needs help, right? So what's the end shot of that? Was there any help in the end after 19 incidences? This kind of maybe ties into our secure care motion that we made last year. Maybe we need more resources from Vancouver Coastal Health and secure care.
To the chair, to Councillor Galanders, this morning I was in a meeting with my teams, and that was at 8:30 in the morning, and one individual had already made 5 calls. So in those type of incidents, when the police, we have to respond. If someone is distraught, someone wants to harm themselves, we are there. Our partners are there, fire is there, ambulance will be there. But when we make the assessment that the individual is not certifiable, and that sort of ends your police interaction. But through our vulnerable persons unit, we work closely with Vancouver Coastal Health, with the ACT folks. And I believe we have about 49 clients here right now that are part of ACT. So we do work closely with them to provide that support and resources. But there are those files, like the one that you referenced, where the police response is necessary. However, there has to be other support mechanisms to provide assistance to these folks.
Any further questions? We have a motion? Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor? Thank you. Briefing.
Madam Chair, I have two quick updates. I just want to update you on the recent incident involving one of our officers who was stabbed while on duty on August 22nd. Fortunately, the injuries were not life-threatening, and the officer received treatment at the hospital, at Vancouver General Hospital, and he was released, and he's at home with his family recovering. I just want to say that this was a very, concerning, scary incident, but I'm very grateful for the swift response of our team and the support that we received from our fire colleagues, BC Ambulance, Vancouver Police Department, their officers who assisted in an expedited route to Vancouver General Hospital by managing intersection traffic. Transit Police, UBC, Burnaby, so everyone came together to lend a hand on this very dynamic, serious, and unfolding situation. Secondly, just want to quickly provide an update on Richmond RCMP's third annual Youth Academy, which was held August 19th to the 23rd. This was a 5-day camp, a unique opportunity for our young people. We had 28 candidates, young men and women from grades 10 to 12 who participated. And as you know, this training, it was a sort of a first-hand experience in policing through real-world scenarios, modeling police training in a safe and controlled environment. The young people had the opportunities to learn about police duties, criminal justice, fitness, teamwork, organization, public speaking, self-reliance, and discipline. We received comments and emails, not only from parents, but from the students as well, as to how impressed they were. And it takes a lot of time and effort to put these things together. So through our community engagement team and members from different units coming together, volunteering, participating in their days off, as well as City of Richmond staff and of course our volunteers from previous years, students who graduated from the Youth Academy, to our 70 to 80-year-old seniors who are part of our volunteer team came and made this event happen. So really well done. Kudos to everyone. And I look forward to our 4th annual Youth Academy next year. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the work done, and thank you for the update on the officer, and we're glad to hear he's home safe. And I think that just reminds us all that tomorrow's September 11th, the 23rd anniversary of September 11th, the worst terror attack in North American history. And I think at this moment, it makes sense to take a moment then to recognize all the first responders, the firefighters and police, more than 400 of whom lost their lives in responding to that. And so we're glad that we had a good outcome in Richmond, and we're sad for all the firefighters and police officers that have lost their lives in the line of duty. And we know that there's always the chance that something could go wrong, and we appreciate the work that you do and the risk that you take. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to all of you for your continuing support.
Do we have any managers' reports?
Through the chair, no additional manager reports.
Councillor Wolf, you have a question?
In response to the Richmond Fire Chief comment on being unable to release information on the body that was found in the ditch, and that maybe the BC coroner can provide that, can this committee give direction to someone on staff to have a communication with the BC coroner's office to find out if that can be released? Is that possible?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I'm happy to take that on and start that question and certainly get back to you through the chair.
Thank you. Maybe it's best to come back in the form of a memo before we send out specifically a message to the public first.
I think I'll work with my GM and the solicitor before we release any information on that.
Thank you.
For sure. Thanks.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Anything else? Okay, thank you. We are adjourned. See you October 8th at 4 p.m., same place.